What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Shonen N Chill, episode number 16. This is, of course, Zenrotto, and I am, of course, joined by Oceans.
Hello, hello.
Every week, I got to do it every week.
And every week I gotta try saying my hello as romantically as possible to keep everything alive, you know?
Well, one day I'll go back and edit these one day, and I'll have like roses and lights, like, candlelight up on your hello. Okay, so it's an interesting week because there is no
Mm-hmm.
Jujutsu Kaisen, so just rip that band-aid off now for anybody who hadn't looked yet. No Jujutsu
Uh-huh.
Kaisen.
Yep,
Um,
on break, because
on
Gege is
break.
sick.
They did say that it looked like it was just a usual illness, so it's not like
Yep.
COVID or anything. So he might have just had
Uh,
a cold or something. I don't know, but
yeah, I think they clarified it's not COVID.
yeah, okay.
So
So
we're good
no
there.
worries there. But we did
Mm-hmm.
have some interesting stuff this week. We have 3 series now that are below, at 3 chapters or below, between
Mm-hmm.
Elusive Samurai, I Tell C, and Witch Watch that just came out today.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some good stuff in the other ones. So what was your top 3 this week?
My top one is My Hero Academia. You know, takes the opportunity to take the top spot when Jujutsu Kaisen isn't around. Spot number two is Mashle, and spot number three is Phantom Seer. What
Okay.
about you, my man?
My number 1 was also My Hero Academia, and then my number 2 was Phantom Seer, and then my number 3 was Undead Unluck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, where do we want to start?
Well, let's go ahead and start with the. Did you read any of the 3 newbies this week? Did you read Witch Watch, Elusive Samurai, or I Tell C?
I read Elusive Samurai and I read the first chapter of Witch Watch. I have not yet jumped into I Tell C.
Okay. How did you feel about Witch Watch?
Really cute. Like I liked it more than I expected to. It feels sweet, but yet it also feels like it could easily set itself up to actually go somewhere with all the like the magical world that it has already established. I feel like it's that classic sense of, oh, here's a goofy premise, but if you like this one, ooh, we might go into like actual plot stuff in like 30 chapters, which I don't think I've ever felt it this strongly in just the first chapter. Because usually like first chapters are kind of a whole bunch of nothing, but this one seems very promising, and I think that the character dynamic between the main duo is pretty cool. Like they're both dumb in their own way, but not in a way that makes me dislike them. So I'm just kind of sitting there. Yes, get together, please.
Please, need
Yeah.
that immediately. No, I agree. I thought it was really cute. It's a good pilot chapter, like you said, and yeah, it was weird reading it because on one end you're like, oh, this is a silly gag manga about a witch, but then also like there's a lot they could go into, which is neat,
Hmm.
and the main
Hmm.
character definitely has like I'm gonna be a main character protagonist vibe. You know, he's got like special
Yeah.
powers and stuff, and it
Yeah.
was it was interesting. There's a lot of like stuff they can go into as far as the backstory of ogres being like they used to be familiars and then they kind of became people and all this kind of stuff, and I like it. I don't have too much to say. I mean, it was still a pilot chapter, so there's nothing crazy
Hmm.
groundbreaking in it, but everyone was likable. It's cute. The jokes were pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And I gotta say, I was really blindsided by the premise because the chapter starts and it's like, oh, just regular students beating each other up stuff, and then it just like fucking drops it on you. Oh yeah, so we're ogres and you can't use your powers. I'm like, wait, did I miss an exposition? What's going on? And I thought that was really refreshing because I feel like if you compare that, for example, to Elusive Samurai, which started with a big exposition dump, this one was very much just like, oh, you're just gonna have to accept whatever we do here, and you're gonna have fun. And I did have fun, so good on you, Mister Author Person.
Yeah, very much. Like, because, they give you the entire exposition of both what the ogres are, what he's going to do, like why he's her familiar, and they do it in like 2 pages
Yeah,
of a
yeah,
50-page story. Whereas Elusive Samurai felt like it was the entirety of the opening chapter, was
yeah,
just trying
exactly.
to set its premise. So this feels really good. I mean, it helps that it was a gag series, and Elusive Samurai obviously does not want to be, and it wants to set up more. So it had the
Hmm.
advantage of being like it's just silliness, but it's good. The characters are cute. I don't know. I like it. Read it. If you haven't read it
Hmm.
yet, read it.
Yeah, give it a try. Do you want to move over to the other baby series,
Yes. Let's jump
Elusive?
to Elusive because you have not read ITLC, and then I'll just give a little quick rundown of ITLC after we're done with Elusive.
Bet. This is the first chapter of Elusive I actually liked, like genuinely enjoyed. And I think it comes down to the fact that there was more like doing and happening this chapter as opposed to just people listing names and being like, "Oh, he is the guy of that guy." Whereas this week was very much, okay, here's you have a fighting encounter, um just fucking survive. And I thought the dynamic where it's like the main character's main ability is he can just dodge really well to the point where fighting him is just a battle of attrition and eventually he will get you. I thought that was a pretty cool dynamic with also his friends coming in and trying to pressure the enemy to the point where he makes a mistake and leaves his neck open. I thought the panel where the main kid decapitates the guy was way more brutal than I expected. I thought he was going to hit him with like the flat side of his blade or whatnot, but nope, just straight up off with his head, and I'm here for it. So
Yeah, this series is like super brutal.
yeah.
All the time. I mean, the opening chapter was crazy brutal. It was tons of massacres and everything. And in this one, not just the decapitation, but we also see the death of the brother, which is this full-grown man tackling a small child and just beating him to death on the ground
Mm-hmm.
on panel.
Yeah.
Like it's not even
Yeah.
implied; they just show it. It's pretty brutal.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I like the concept of pretty much all of it. This chapter kind of hit for me. It was really cool. I like the concept of like his will to survive makes him enjoy life or death situations because he has fun
Mm-hmm.
like evading and just letting
Mm-hmm.
people try to hit him. I like the teamwork aspect of it. I think it's going to make for some really cool battles in the future where it's going to be,
Mm-hmm.
you know, his people are they can't win the fight, but all they're trying to do is make you make a mistake so that
Mm-hmm.
the guy who dodges forever can finally get you. It finally is shaping up into something that has, I think, a clear scope and focus, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
about that. So much of it before was, like you said, just an exposition dump of this samurai killed this family, and then this happened, and these people got murdered, and this happened, and then your
Mm-hmm.
brother, this happened, and there was a little bit of that in this, but not nearly as much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this one was all action. Well, not all action, but mostly action, and it was really creative, really fun action. This is the
Mm-hmm.
first time it reminded me of Assassination Classroom, which is a good thing.
Yes, absolutely. I also think the paneling this chapter was way better than it has been in the last two. Um, One thing I do want to mention is that I think the translation is a bit interesting in that they don't remove like the honorifics, which I think is what makes reading especially the names a bit difficult because everyone's called Toshiyuki Dono and Korebani Dono, and Dono is an honorific. I believe it means something in the realm of lord or majesty, and
It's
it's
something, yeah, it's something like that.
yeah, and it seems weird that they keep that intact. Like maybe because to maintain the historical vibe, but it still ends up making reading it less fun because especially in the first two chapters I felt like everyone just had the same name, and I think a big part of that was because everyone's name seemingly ended in that dono. So that's certainly a choice that they made, which I'm not super hot on.
Yeah, I
uh
assume, like you said, it's to maintain the period aspect of it.
mhm,
It doesn't bother me too much just because I already know what it means. So it
mhm,
doesn't like I don't see it sticking out as incredibly strange to me. But I can definitely see people who don't know what that's because that's not like a common one. You don't see that a
mhm,
lot, and even if you watch a lot of anime and stuff, that's not one of the ones you'll usually run across.
mhm,
Um, so it's definitely like I can see it being jarring if it's not one that you're exposed to very often because you're just like,
mhm.
what the fuck? Everyone's constantly saying this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not necessarily just that it's jarring. It's a bit more like what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I believe, where all these like Japanese names also ending with the same thing to me just starts inducing schemitis, right? Because I'm like, don't know. What are all these words? Okay, I guess I'll just flip the page and hope there's fewer on the next page. So yeah, I'll see. Like, I'm assuming not everyone in this story is going to be a lord of something, so hopefully this will just decrease as more characters get introduced who are not a Dono person.
Right.
But yeah, like in those first chapters, it was a bit not super cool. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Otherwise, though, I think it was good. I think it's finally starting to take shape, and I like
yeah,
that.
yeah. It finally seems to have like an identity. I don't want to say a direction yet, but it has an identity that
Yeah,
I can
that's
like
fair.
actually point towards.
Okay.
Right. You want to run through ITLC?
Yeah, I'll jump into ITLC real quick. This chapter was a little bit less squicky weird than the last one.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we have an overarching bad guy for at least a couple chapters, it seems like, who is like a serial kidnapper killer kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
the girl is portrayed as a little bit less weird. She was super weird in the last one, and like it's kind of gross that we're weaponizing PTSD from violent crime kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
She's less like that in this one. She's still weird, but like more comedically weird in this. Um, we've actually got a bit of a relationship between the main cast now, whereas I think the first chapter was so focused on this is her, she's weird, this is how she does it. The characters were all in the first chapter, but they didn't really get any time to do anything together. Whereas in this one, they actually kind of hang out together and they do a little bit of crime solving.
Mm-hmm.
It was much better than the last one. I could see it being something fun to read now, whereas the last one I was like, this is gonna die for sure. Um, I could see it going somewhere. It still wasn't an incredible chapter, but the last one was kind of rough, and this one was pretty enjoyable.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll check it out sometime whenever I have enough brain power to read something, which
That's fair.
no doesn't happen too much.
All right, so let's knock out the. Let's go ahead and we'll start going into our lists because our lists were actually pretty varied this week.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do Undead Unluck first.
Right. Okay. So, you pointed out the comment that we got on the last episode of someone mentioning that we should give Undead Unluck a bit more of a attentive look. So I took that to heart and I tried rereading as much of it as I could before today, just to kind of get an idea of what I've been missing for the last couple of weeks. And I will say, on a reread, this time travel arc is more manageable. Like, I think a big problem that we had, or at least I had, I realize now upon rereading, is that I'm just bad at remembering stuff weekly, man. I'm just not good with this memory stuff. But on a reread, it is kind of an interesting story where they kind of travel through these different layers of both time and Andy's personality. And I think that that's a pretty clever thing to do. I just think the weekly experience of it was um not super enjoyable for me. So yeah, just to kind of to that random person in the comments, don't feel bad about asking us to be more attentive towards certain things. Like, it's totally fine. We only have that much brain capacity for things, right? So certain things just get more shine than others, but I'm willing to give things a second look if I notice that we haven't been super attentive to it, which is easy to do in a week without Jujutsu Kaisen.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Jujutsu Kaisen being off, it probably would have been a more difficult week to spare the net, as it were.
Yeah.
But I really like this
Uh.
chapter. I have been
Mm-hmm.
kind of on the fence about the mangaka character and what they were really going to bring to the story, and it turns out nothing. um, she's gone. He's gone.
Uh-huh.
They're gone. I don't. I can't tell.
No clue.
No
No clue.
clue. No clue. Um, but this is such like a really emotional, sweet wrap up to her little story. Hey, their little story. Whatever.
Yes.
The
Yes.
mangaka character's little story.
Yeah.
She ages up on repair, so he's
Mm-hmm.
in an adult body, so he can fight now.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process, they die.
Mm-hmm.
Not the mangaka dies because of the
Mm-hmm.
whatever artifact they used aged her 150 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's just like, it gets a little bit of the final piece of the backstory on the mother, that the
Mm-hmm.
mother died before they were ever able to fully communicate what they wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
um, which was sad. And then they kind of like, with the mother gone, they didn't really have anything else because no one could see them their whole lives. So they
Mm-hmm.
were able to give their lives for this thing that matters very much to them. And these people that have been, even though they didn't know the mangaka per se, the mangaka knew them because they were the only people really that they had. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a very sweet, somber little ending. Also, I really like Unrepair. I think his
Mm-hmm.
power's cool as shit, and I hope that he becomes a good guy at some point, or at least like a collaborator with them
Mm-hmm.
here and there. Because they kind of hinted to it last week, where it's like, hey, I'm not fighting you guys because I don't like you. If you have something that can help me get what I want, I will happily team up with you. But right now, you don't. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that he works into the plot a little bit more, because I think his power is a really cool concept of just
Mm-hmm.
like he negates healing. So if you get hurt
Mm-hmm.
by him, you can't ever recover from the wound.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
super cool power.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I like they're fighting this big monster thing again. And
Mm-hmm.
like we said last time, is we almost forgot that the big monster was even there.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like the big monster's design. I just think it's
Mm-hmm.
a cool looking kind of almost like a bug mech beast,
Mm-hmm.
and them actually being able to fight it this time, whereas last time they just got stomped in like 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of payoff that I like, man. Like after all that time traveling and all that talking and learning and meeting Victor and all that stuff, now that they're like, oh, we can fight it now, and you can see them doing tangible damage. I'm here for that. That stuff hits for me, man.
Yeah, also one thing that really stuck out to me this chapter is like a little I want to call it a clever little trick because it feels like the author like winking at me through the page is when the mangaka character is dying and is remembering their mother and starts introducing Fuko, Andy, and Unrepair in like these little blurbs. I want to say that's the mangaka doing a little twisteroo to have an excuse to quickly re-summarize what everyone is doing and why,
Hmm.
to like get the reader back into after the time travel arc. And that, if that's actually the intention, which I think it might be, that's pretty shrewd. That's pretty cool. I like that. That's like a very efficient and cool way of doing recap in a way.
Yeah, it is. I
Um,
mean, because it never felt like, oh, this is just a dumb exposition dump, because the way it's delivered is, the mangaka talking to the spirit of their mother.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it
Which is
was it was very good.
it was emotionally resonant. God, that panel where they say but it was too late, and it doesn't say anything else, and just has him crying over his mom's body. It's like such a cliche kind of picture, but for some reason, the added element of he is literally like unknown to anyone. No one can like interact with him, and he can't really interact with anyone in his life. That added element really made that hit surprisingly hard. So yeah, no, definitely a good chapter this week. I'm interested to see where this goes now because I'm assuming next week we're defeating the bug mecha, Autumn, and after that we'll get back to like the overarching big narrative, I suppose.
Yeah, I assume that Autumn basically has to go down um, next week. You can't fight it for too much longer, because it's kind of been the specter hanging over everything that's been going on for so
Yeah.
long. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. Other than
Yeah.
that, I enjoyed it very much. I like the payoff. I'm glad it's happening again. And
Hmm.
I guess with that, I'm good.
Yeah. I mean,
All
that's
right. Well,
all
then
really
let's
I
jump
have to say
to
too.
Mashal.
Oh my god, Mashle was hilarious. Mash is such a fun character, and I don't know. It takes me by surprise every week. Like I think it's just again my stupid memory. I keep forgetting how funny Mash can be, just on his own. When he's running away from the Dedervant, and he's like, "Ah, oh, shucks. I guess I have to stay away from them." But how am I gonna find a solution? It's not like I'm the brains of the group.
Yeah,
I'm
he's like,
like,
I'm not
man,
exactly the smartest member of the team.
that's so good. And also like his solution to the like balloon key to rip it open by break dancing a tornado into existence. Like
Yeah, I
ah,
love that the everyone's response to him is that he's a living weapon after he does that.
So good.
I
I
also
liked it
like
so
that
much.
the little guy he's working with is like trying to formulate a plan, and Mash just keeps touching it and
Mhm.
setting off the alarm over and over again.
Yeah, I also like how every time they set up the alarm, like it doesn't show us like anything, any like full chase scene or anything. It's just like one panel of them running
And the best
away.
part is it's the same panel, exactly the same panel both times. It's really funny.
Yeah. Also, like when the mage he's teaming up with the size guy, he's like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna blindside him, and we're gonna formulate a strategy. And Mash is just like, sorry, you're using too many big words.
Yeah, he blacks out. Like, did you pass out for a minute?
It's so funny because Mash is. It's easy to forget how much of a goofball Mash is because when you like skim through Mash or when you see people tweet about it, it's always like either the really cool panels or the panels of Mash dissing someone, like the one where he calls Lance a pedo. Um, so it's easy to forget that he's such a dumbass, but he's adorable.
Yeah, he is. I
And
love that. Like, this is my kind of humor with like straight man deadpan humor. Whereas
mhm,
Mash is generally in really ridiculous situations, but he doesn't overreact to them. He's always kind of
uh-huh,
flat faced.
uh-huh.
Every single time he does almost anything, I think it's funny. I
Yeah.
also didn't even realize. I just noticed again them running away from the monster. It's used a third time at the very end of the chapter. It's the very last panel of the chapter. Is them running from it again,
No,
and
I
they're in the
missed.
same poses again.
I missed that. Wait, let me pull it up. But
It's right after they get
oh,
the key. They're like one key down, and then the last one is them running from the monster after that.
oh yeah. Well, of course, because that makes noise, right?
That's so good.
Oh my god. Also, God, I've been like rereading bits of Mashle over this last week, and man, I really like Mashle's art style. I've realized, like, it's so detailed, but at the same time, it can get so goofy.
Yeah, it
Like, if you look
reminds
at
me a lot of like One Punch Man and to a lesser extent Mob Psycho because he doesn't do it quite as much in Mob Psycho. But
it.
One Punch Man will always kind of do that thing where it gets extremely detailed for the really serious moments, and then it'll cut to like the artist, the original webcomics artist style that's very like
hmm
minimalist and goofy because he wasn't
hmm
really an artist at the time that he was making it.
hmm
It reminds me a lot of that, and it works great in this because Mash
hmm
somehow like he's got the perfect face for it to be super detailed or just go completely flat without it looking goofy or wrong or like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, okay. I think part of that is also due to the fact that he does kind of just look like Mob
He
from
does.
Mob
Yeah,
Psycho.
he's very simple. He's got like the flat haircut, the flat
hmm
face. There's not a huge amount of like detail in character faces. Everyone's
hmm
like kind of got the same head in this, which is good, I think, for the art style.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it also it's an interesting contrast because if you look, for example, at their mages' robes, those are or even in the funny panels, they're shaded pretty in a pretty detailed way, which gives it a very interesting look. Like also all the panels where you see the Minotaur guy like up close. Like there's one where it shows like his eye and his like snout. It's just good art, and I am really glad to see that we have an artist who can really like fluctuate between these two styles, right? Because it means that any given scene is going to look exactly the way it needs to, because the
Yeah,
artist can
and it's
just kind of
nice
do
too
whatever.
because there's not like a ton of build up between. Like you don't I mean you can
hmm
kind of call it like, oh, this is a serious moment, but then you'll turn the panel and it's just squishy, flat faced mash, like reacting to something. Like he did it a
hmm
lot, especially with the guy who turned people into dolls, where the
Yeah,
guy would give the big long lecture and you're like, oh shit, it's like super detailed, and the very next panel is the most minimalist, like flat faced mash possible. Just being like, okay. Right after it. It's so good.
uh, yeah. Mashle is just good. Read it. Like again, we say this every week. Not a lot of like depth or whatever, but man, I am having fun. So who really cares?
Yeah, I mean, it is starting to develop it with,
hmm
Magic Society and the weird acceptance of genocide of everyone that doesn't have magic,
hmm
and MASH kind of challenging that. But it's certainly not like it's not going to match the narrative of the 200 plus chapter stuff that people are reading right now, but it's just a fun ride every time.
Yeah,
I have
yeah,
yet to hit a
definitely.
chapter of Mashle I have not enjoyed.
Exactly. And I think that's the highest praise we can really give a gag series like this.
That's true.
What's next on the menu? Phantom Seer?
I think Phantom Seer is perfect.
Man, I am so happy we have like a competent horror mangaka here.
It's
Like,
so every week I get blown away by like just how well the horror stuff is drawn.
mm-hmm.
Like, some of the art in this chapter was nasty and like horrific. Oh my god.
Yeah. I just think also just the setup for like classic horror is done so well. Like a dollhouse is already really creepy, and then you add to that Kento Matsura's fantastic art, and it's it's great. Like I've seen some people have started to say like the typical thing, oh, it gets carried by the art, and it's like, well, no, not really, because art isn't scary by itself. It's the context around it that makes most of it scary. Like dolls are creepy by themselves, sure, but it's the whole like story about, oh, you know, he said the dolls were getting him to collect them that makes it scary, not just, dolls by themselves.
Right, like if you
So,
just have a character walking through a hallway of dolls, no matter how spooky you draw it, you're just like, okay. But the
mhm,
whole situation was well. God, the 2 pages where you see the hallway of all the dolls, and I Betsu is just like, ew, they're kind of gross. And then she looks at the window, and they're all looking at her
uh-huh.
through the window of the house. Oh God, dude, I hate that
Yeah,
panel.
yeah.
It's so creepy.
Yeah, yeah, or the sequence where they all notice the doll the girl's holding, but we don't get to see it until like a full page later. They're like, "What the fuck is this? I don't know. What the fuck is that? What the fuck you talking about?" Look down, and then you turn the page, and she has this thing clinging to her chest.
Yeah, the
Like, oh my
horrible
god.
like head smash doll.
Hmm.
Oh God, I am excited next week too because we're gonna get some combat without Yori because he has kind
Yeah.
of carried a lot of the fights. So from the beginning.
Hmm.
It's pretty much just been like, oh shit, Shadow Man is crazy strong. He's gonna blow your shit up. And we're gonna
Yes.
not get that. We're gonna get to see the new person fight, which is cool.
Yes, she seems badass. I want to see her fight.
Yes. Also, I just like Tengu guy. Also, I like that him and Iori like kind of don't like each other, but also
Hmm.
when push comes to shove, the very first thing that he says is, "Don't worry, Tengu guy's gonna win." I
Hmm.
love that kind of relationship where they're not like straight up rivals, but
Hmm.
like on the surface they don't get along, but then as soon as anything serious happens, they've got faith in each other. I love that kind of character relationship.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like a sort of it's sort of a begrudging respect mixed in with like amicability hidden under pride. And I think that that's really satisfying to like just watch and then also watch grow.
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah, definitely. I really like that. But yeah, I'm excited to where we're going now because seems like the main villain group is also on site. Like the fuckboy man is also
Yes,
there.
he's there, and then we get the shot of the two shadowed heads, and I
Oh
don't.
yeah, right at the end.
Yeah, I don't know if one of them is the doll girl we've already seen, but I'm assuming, given the fact they're shadowed, it's the two that we were not shown yet.
I assume.
It's hard for me to tell based on just the lower half of the clothing. Um, I guess I could go back and
Yeah.
look, but I don't want to do that right now. So
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if they're not showing us directly, I assume it's someone new.
yeah, I mean they're intentionally blacked out from the waist up, so that's my
Yeah,
assumption.
exactly.
So if we had, because they showed us the fuck boy in full light earlier in that
Exactly.
chapter, so yeah. Uh,
Yeah, this does not look like anyone we've seen before necessarily, but I'm sure the comments will correct us on that. You can always count on that.
Yeah, that's true. Man, also after the for some reason I don't know why it spooks me, but after the panels where the dolls are looking at her through the window and she kind of freaks out about it, and then she
Hmm.
ignores it. The next page of them standing in that like super frilly looking bedroom with the
Hmm.
standing dolls there, that is super unnerving to me too. Just the whole
Yeah.
thing. The panel where Iori notices that the first notices she's holding the doll and his eye is drawn like super minimalist. It's just like just a circle with another circle in it. Ugh.
Hmm.
I don't know, man. I
Yeah.
love, I really love Phantom Seer. I know that I'm playing into, oh, it's carried by the art by talking about how well everything is drawn creepily. God, like when they ask her, "Hey, can you show me how the dolls are made?" and it's like the warped close up of her eye and everything. Ugh,
Yeah, yeah. The
ugh,
fish eye lens is
yeah.
insane there, but in
And
general,
I
this
don't
entire
agree at all that
sequence.
it's carried by the art, but man, the art is something special.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the entire sequence is constructed in a way that even if the art were, you know, not as good, it would still be a scary sequence by itself. Like the thing about him having been strangled by the hair of the dolls, that's like, I mean, that's assumably going to be like their superpower or whatnot, but it still is scary imagery. And, the art certainly helps. Like, not gonna pretend like art and writing exist separately in a medium that is defined by graphic novel style writing, right? Like they're part of the same entity. So it's just a good package all around.
Yep.
Um,
And it's all, and this is one of those ones where I can see it going places. It's not one of the ones like, not even any offense to Mashle, but where it's just like, yeah, every week is silly. I like it. Like I can see this really expanding on its lore in a big way as it keeps
yeah,
going forward.
yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, we've already gotten like the introduction of like other exorcist groups and all that. So I'm assuming that is going to be the next point of expansion if I had to like bet my money on something.
Probably.
Um, yeah.
Because I even assume I don't know that Senju is gonna be the last thing. Because there's only 5 enemies so far, including
Mhm.
her. So I don't think that will be the final enemy, but I don't know. Maybe if it's a
I
short
mean,
one, it could be.
yeah, I mean, if I think Senju could carry the story for I don't know, like 50 chapters or so if they manage to introduce more minor antagonists along the way. Or, honestly, you could extend it for quite a long time if you start doing like intermediary antagonists as like, measuring sticks or rivals. I think you could get a lot of mileage out of this one villain, but I do agree this does not feel like a 600 chapter epic yet. Uh,
No, no.
but I mean, not everything has to be like that,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, it may never get there. It might just be like a Demon Slayer style, like, hey, this is the bad guy, this is the good guy, and the good guy really wants to kill him,
Yeah,
and that would be fine.
yeah. I mean, you just um, you just write a quick story about what you want to write, and then that's it. Like, no shame in that. I'd even say that that is a rare luxury these days, where everything that's even mildly popular gets thrown under the milk machine.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
true.
uh yeah, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it.
All
But
right,
y'all
yeah.
know.
All right, I won't make you say it.
Okay.
So let's talk about before we go into the last major one from our top threes. Did you read Kaiju number 8 by chance?
No, I've fallen behind on that, unfortunately.
Oh man, it's gotten so good lately, and there's the very last panel of the newest chapter. I swear to God, it has to be a Monster Hunter reference, just because the weapon that she is holding looks exactly like a Monster Hunter Switch Axe.
Well, let me check real quick. I mean, not like I'm gonna spoil myself. Because um, I kept up with it for a fair bit, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the like non-weekly release schedule that just kind of kills my groove in a way.
Yeah, I could see it. It's harder to keep up with, especially because I don't like when Kaiju number 8 has always done this, and Spy Family is starting to do this, where on off weeks they'll just drop like one image, so it keeps
Yeah.
popping up, and so then I'm like, well, I don't even know if I should click on this week's because I don't know if I'm going to open it and it's just going to be a color page. So
Hmm.
sometimes it becomes harder to keep up when there's new content. But
Also,
damn,
yeah,
is it good?
that is 100% a Switch X.
It has to be, right? Like if it's not a direct Monster Hunter reference, boy, it is very similar in design.
Well, I mean, it being a Monster Hunter reference is pretty likely considering how big that franchise is over in Japan.
Yeah, also she's literally chopping a giant monster with it in the page right
It,
before it.
yeah, exactly. The next kaiju they fight is just Nergigante.
Kaiju number 10, Rathalos.
Yeah, public service announcement to anyone listening: play Monster Hunter World.
Yes, for
No
the love of
re,
God.
yeah,
I
no
haven't
reason
played the
not
demo
to.
of Monster Hunter Rise. I really want to.
I'm kind of hoping they put Rise on PC because I don't know. I've become such a piece of shit when it comes to gaming because ever since I've built the PC and I've been playing like at, at good settings, I just cannot go back to the
Oh
Switch's
no,
30 FPS.
you're one of those guys now.
I'm sorry. It's just once you get a 144 hertz monitor, you just can't go back. Like no way. Like even even using a mouse on like an older monitor now feels wrong. I I'm gone, Zen.
We've lost him. We've lost him to the PC Master Race twit posters.
No, but
No.
I genuinely do hope that Rise gets a PC port, just so I can play it in a way that I prefer, and also because man, I do love modding games, and Monster Hunter is one of the funniest games to mod. So I hope that that'll be the case. Also because I remember there was a leak that supposedly said that it is getting a PC port by
I don't
like the
know why
same
it
guy who.
wouldn't unless Nintendo was hardcore, like you cannot release it on any platform other than ours. So,
Yeah, exactly. And the person that leaked the supposed PC release is the same person that leaked the existence of Rise 14 hours before the trailer dropped. So
okay.
I'm fine.
That's
I'm
pretty
chilling.
verifiable, yeah.
Yeah. But okay, is there any other series before we get into the head honcho?
No, I guess it's time to talk My Hero.
Yep. Well, you go. It is your special chapter.
Damn, this chapter fucking smacked. It was super good the whole time. My hero has always been, for me, because I'm one of those special fans that doesn't give a shit about almost the entire cast. So a lot of times when my hero tends to bog itself down, to me, okay, I should specify that when I'm giving this criticism, it is only from my viewpoint, and I am fully willing to acknowledge that the stuff that I view as bogging the series down does not apply to everyone. Because again,
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a shit about most of the characters, and a lot of people do. So for me,
Mm-hmm.
when my hero starts to kind of bog itself down with Deku's going through this and Bakugo got a little nicer today, I'm like, I don't fucking, oh my god. But when my hero really digs into its greater world, and the only characters that are the exception to my I don't give a shit about you rule is the Todoroki family. So literally this entire chapter was like made for me. Holy shit, it was so good. I mean, you've got the people rising up to because they don't have faith in heroes anymore. So they've
Mm-hmm.
got, equipment and weaponry. Like, so people pointed out last week that the guy who had the glove, he was nobody individual. It was the glove that was important, not the
Mm-hmm.
guy, because it was just
Mm-hmm.
showing that they were going to step in before Genus showed up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the side effect of people stepping up is that they're not trained to do this. So
Yes.
tons of destruction and collateral damage, and when this kind of stuff happens, their response isn't we should stop doing this because it's causing this problem. It's why didn't the goddamn heroes get here faster so this didn't happen? It's just then you have the number 9 hero
Mm-hmm.
retiring and the little
Mm-hmm.
thought bubble that basically just said he just wanted to be respected and now people don't like him so he's quitting. So I mean that's a shitty thing to think. And then it
Mm-hmm.
kind of puts more about, I don't think it's coincidental that pretty much 2 pages after that happened shows Stain coming back. That,
Mm-hmm.
he was in it for the wrong reasons. All he wanted was people to respect him. And now that they don't like him, he's leaving forever.
Mm-hmm.
God, the panel of the All Might statue that says "I am not here" on it.
Uh-huh.
Fucking A, it's so good. And then, we move away from that stuff into the Todoroki family stuff where this is a complicated subject. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people on Twitter have already been like, this chapter is proof that Endeavor never actually gave a shit about making it up to his family because he didn't realize, but that's not really how it works, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Endeavor had been genuinely trying to make it up to them, but I think that when you have the worst product of it that's directly in front of his eyes on a regular basis is Shoto, and Shoto's pretty well adjusted, all things considered.
Mm-hmm.
So you have from his point of view what was ultimately like a dysfunctional family, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and he was kind of not coping necessarily with that information, but he was kind of like not. What am I trying to say? He didn't have the real scope of what his actions actually did in front of his eyes until right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you look at, the one son hates him, but I think every parent kind of has the kid that's like, fuck you, dad. And so it's easy to
Mm-hmm.
write. And I'm not saying he's wrong for saying fuck you, dad. Endeavor is an asshole. But I think from Endeavor's point of view, it's easy to kind of write that off as like, oh, they're always going to hate me because I was a dick, but that's okay. I'm going to be nice to them now. And it's easy to not have the scope of what you have done to yourself. When you do wrong to other people, from your point of view, you didn't necessarily do wrong. So you're
Mm-hmm.
hearing them and you're responding to them and you're agreeing with them. And so you're trying to make it up to them, but you don't have the full weight of like what it really was. And him
Mm-hmm.
immediately like waking up barely alive and the first image in his head is Dobby saying let's
Mm-hmm.
fucking kill each other right now and him just breaking down. Oh my god, it was so good.
Yeah, I didn't even realize Endeavor could make faces like that. Like he looked like a different person for most of this chapter. Like he has full on crow's feet now, like his eyes are sunk. Hori's command over facial expressions when he wants to make them good is so strong. Like it was like that last chapter as well. Like you get a lot of these little subtleties in the faces, but Endeavor is just no subtlety, absolute agony from start to finish, and I think it's fantastic. Um, and I also agree. I think it's great to see him like understanding the full scope of what he's actually done to the point where he realizes that nothing he can do from this point onwards can fix it, and basically nothing can redeem him. Like he's fucked. He was a terrible person, and he's reaping what he deserves in his eyes. And just him going through that development on that hospital bed, it's it that's the wonderful thing. It's so deliciously complicated, right? Like
Now,
it's
next week is going to be a fucking Twitter minefield, dude.
yes, yes.
Because
If
Ray is back. This is their
yeah.
first time they've seen one another.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like no matter how it's written next week, people are going to be really pissed off.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that Horikoshi did anything bad. I'm just saying that I think the way that Twitter responds to Endeavor is like anything short of Ray throwing a dagger on his bed and saying fucking kill yourself then is going to make people upset.
yeah, that's the thing. If Ray says anything that could even remotely be interpreted as uh positive towards Endeavor, I would just not be on the website next week.
Right. Yeah, and it's a
Cuz
problem because I don't want to get too much into the translator thing that happened today because it's so stupid. It's so thoroughly
uh-huh.
stupid. But
Uh-huh.
it shows that how little of an offense it takes for that side of Twitter to immediately be ready to just this is the worst thing that's ever happened.
Mhm.
I mean, literally all the translation change was that in English, Rei uses a term of ownership over the family and Toya, and in Japanese
Mhm.
she does not. And people
Mhm.
are like, when are we getting rid of this shit translator? And I'm like, it's the same message. The message is identical. Nothing about it is different. So now we're going into next week, and you have the victim and the abuser meeting one another for the first time in a very long time. And
Mhm.
Endeavor's in a really bad place, obviously, mentally.
Mhm.
So my assumption is that he's going to be looking for basically any positivity at all. You know,
Mhm.
anything to be like like reassurance that he's not just the worst human being on the planet, because that's a pretty natural thing to want when you're in the position that he's in. But I feel like if anybody gives it to him next week, people are going to
Mhm.
lose their mind.
Mhm.
And I guess it's up to you whether or not you think he deserves it. That's not really, that's going to be on an individual basis as to you think whether or not he deserves that reassurance or whatever. But my God, I am not looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I can see what you're saying. But I think that's what makes this entire situation so good. And the online fallout is just a byproduct of it. But I think the fundamental quality that makes the Todoroki situation so fascinating and compelling to follow every time it's brought up is the fact that it is complicated. That you have all these different perspectives, and this play on what we've seen and what we haven't. You know, where Endeavor has numerically saved countless more people than he has hurt, but we've only seen the people he has hurt. We've never really seen him save the people, and that plays tricks on our minds. And all these little tricks and details that are put there to make sure that we are as conflicted as we could possibly be. And I just think that's so wonderful. I
But
think that is
you
such a
say
brave thing.
that Endeavor has saved more people than he's hurt, but then you have to kind of extrapolate that because do you say that Endeavor is responsible for the people that Toya has killed? Or do you say no, right? Because there's so many layers to it. Like,
Exactly.
I think that there's merit to both sides. That one, Endeavor is responsible, and two, that he's not. I think that either side can make a compelling argument. Like, there's no definitive right or wrong here in this situation. I mean, Endeavor's obviously a bad person. Like, I'm not saying that you can argue that Endeavor is not in the wrong, but when it
Mhm.
comes to so many like aspects of just the way that what he's done impacts the world and how people should view both the family situation and as an outside viewer just the not just the character but the persona and the hero of Endeavor because of it is so good.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, yeah, and
I don't even really know how I feel about it personally, because in my opinion, this is like, at least that I have seen, this is probably the most realistic, like, abusive family dynamic that I've seen.
mhm.
Because I think people like to get upset that, oh, Shoto hasn't disowned him and, the daughter still kind of likes him because he wasn't as awful to her as he was to the others. But it's like
Mhm.
that's what it's really like.
Yeah.
That this is such a well portrayed family in this state of just, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm getting caught up in my own words. I'm amazed at how well he has portrayed this every single time it's come up.
Mhm. Yeah. The thing Okay, the thing about like portrayal of abuse situations in a lot of fiction is that they always take the easy solutions for everything, right? You will notice that in a lot of series and books and movies, the abuser is, he's ugly, he is an idiot, he is a terrible person through and through, and that obviously beckons the abuse, and then the rest of his presence in the story is to be, you know, continuously and cathartically attacked and you know deconstructed mentally and physically depending on the series. And that is a way to present abuse, but the problem, or not the problem, the inherent quality of that is that it is a simplification, because it takes a lot of the like multiplicity that situations like that have in real life and just kind of boils them down to bad people. They look bad, they talk bad, they are bad in all aspects of their existence in society, and
Well, yeah, I
therefore
mean, it's
they
kind of the Disney effect, where
yeah, yeah.
every, Disney princess is this 20 something, beautiful, smart, just greatest person ever, and all the bad guys are evil queens that are vindictive and old and ugly and monsters and stuff. And like,
Mhm.
that's just not how the real world is.
Yeah, yeah, like, in okay, in real life, people who may look like socially adjusted, capable members of society and who have done good for society can absolutely be abusive monsters in their own households. And the feelings that those victims and the adjacents to that victim feel towards each other and towards the abuser can, it can have a multitude of variations aside from "I hate you forever, I want to slit your throat while you sleep," which is a sentiment that obviously can exist. Um, but I do think that when you boil it down to just animosity on both sides and just this conflict of hurt innocence versus ugly evil, you are kind of turning it into just a catharsis, and that's fine. I think it can work, right? Like that's not to say that catharsis is a bad thing. Um, but I do think there is value in approaches like with Endeavor, where we are kind of denied that catharsis. we don't get, as you said, we don't get Shoto fucking killing Endeavor or something like that. Like
Right. You know.
just bursting out. It's just people trying to deal with their past and their feelings about that past. And another thing that I think makes it um so complicated is the fact of time, of the timeline, because Endeavor seemingly has not been abusive for pretty much ever since Toya died. Um, like it doesn't seem to have happened since, from what we know. So we're working of a time difference of almost a decade, and that makes a difference for everyone. But it makes the biggest difference for someone like Ray, who's been in care for a decade, who's been dealing and coping with this for a decade, and who now enters the story as a seemingly very changed person. Like she was straight up like confident and had a presence in the room in that final page. So that's the thing. It's complicated. It's convincing. I don't necessarily want to use the word realism because I mean, this is still the big volcano man who can shoot fire, but it is convincing, and I think that is great, but I also think that that just has the natural side effect that it will elicit some very strong reactions because right, like
Right. No,
I can't
I understand.
yeah, I can't conjure up like a salient thesis statement on this. It's just that when you present something in a complicated manner, more akin to reality, just like reality, you will produce a multiplicity of reactions, not all of them positive. So yeah, like I don't know if you can hear, but I'm really trying to choose my words
Yes,
here.
yeah. I mean, me too. I feel like
Yeah.
we're treading ground very carefully here, but the ultimate point, and you're right, is that the closer a situation feels to a tangible, real life situation, the more strongly people are going to react to it because it's easy to brush off like, oh, Volcano Head is big evil and will
Hmm.
get killed by little Volcano Head, but like that's not tackling the issue. And when you actually tackle the issue, you're presenting it in a way where more people are going to have more visceral responses to what's happening.
Yeah, yeah. And I also like the thing is the pro again, not the problem, the quality of giving the audience a sort of cathartic presentation of something like that is that it will always kind of be a reinforcement of values that people already have. Like if a story's fundamental take on its abuse narrative is abuse is bad and abusers should be held accountable for it, yeah, like I don't think anyone who's reasonable would disagree with that. But when you have something like the Endeavor situation, which fundamentally still operates within that same statement, you can have more complicated feelings on it, and it makes us talk and think about what we feel about how this relates to reality and how this would relate to a real situation. And I think that there is genuine value in that. Like this is one of those things where I've kind of learned to kind of just let people talk because I just don't want to step on anyone's toes about a topic this sensitive. Like not because I'm afraid that someone's going to react badly, but because you know don't want to hurt people, right?
Right.
But
You don't want to upset anyone beyond reason.
exactly. But I do very strongly believe that there is value in approaches like this one. Like, and I do think that wanting to make every single piece of media deal with abuse in the "you're bad, you're going down" straight faced manner is kind of not, as you said, not tackling the issue. It's celebrating the conclusion we all already should have about it.
Right.
Which
It
yeah.
feels more like, and this isn't, it's hard because it sounds like criticism, but I'm not
Hmm.
criticizing it. It's just that it's just an observation. Um, that when you have that sort of, oh, you did a bad thing, you look like a rat man, you're an evil monster, and we're going to take you out, is that it's kind of wish fulfillment, right? Like, the world is
Yeah.
black and white, good is good, evil is evil, and that's that, and all evil is shunned. And that's not how the real world works, even though there's probably a lot of cases where it should work that way.
Hmm.
Um, and this isn't it's not granting that wish fulfillment. And so to a lot of people, I can see how that could come off as more, maybe not accepting, but because your immediate reaction isn't the author, shot Endeavor in the gut immediately because he sucks so much. All Might
Mm-hmm.
busted into his house and carried Shoto to Deku's mom, who raised him or whatever. Like, I can see people looking at it and going, so is he saying that Endeavor can be redeemed? Is he saying that even after all this awful stuff, is Endeavor trying to redeem himself a complicit action on the part of the author to say it can be done?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the answer to that question. I would lean into saying no. But
I mean, me too.
yeah, I
Because
mean it's a story
like,
that's portraying this in what I think is a good way. But I guess I can see how people would disagree and think that it needs to stick to the sort of wish fulfillment. But I think portraying
that.
things this way can be healthy in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I think that while wish fulfillment is nice, when you have characters who have gone through similar things as real people, you can create this kind of false expectation almost that bad things happened to this, character that means a lot to someone that they find a lot of, peace in, or the story that they find a lot of peace in, but they dealt with a similar situation by just literally blowing up the person who did bad. You can create
Yeah.
this kind of expectation where people can feel worse if they're in a bad situation and they haven't just immediately cut ties with everyone they know. Because
Yeah.
it's not that easy. He's still their father, and
Yeah.
they can't all just be like, well, I'm never, you can cut your father off, but they're underage kids. Well, at least Shoto is. I think the sister and the brother are older than 18 or whatever, but
Yes, I believe Shoto's the only underage one.
right. But then, you also create this kind of harkens to the Mai conversation, the Mai and Maki
Oh yeah.
conversation, but you create
Yeah, of
this
course.
expectation of families aren't one unit with one mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have the sister who acknowledges that what the dad did was wrong, but hasn't felt the same tangible effects of it in comparison to Shoto, Toya, and maybe the other. Is it what's his name?
Natsuo?
Natsuo. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
Natsuo. I don't know that Natsuo felt how much of it he got in comparison to Shoto and Toya, because
He
it
got,
kind of seems like a lot of his anger is almost on their behalf, sort of.
if I remember correctly, because the whole thing is that they all kind of got a different side of the abuse. Natsuo got neglected, as in,
Because he
I
just
think,
wasn't
yeah,
special.
yeah, he wasn't special enough because by the time, the thing is, right, by the time Fuyumi was born, the sister, Endeavor was still like a good person. We've seen that now. We know that when it was just Toya and Fuyumi, Endeavor was relatively put together. And I assume that by the time Natsuo was born, Endeavor was already declining. And the way Natsuo talks about, especially in Pro Hero, is basically like, I know almost nothing about you because you have never treated me like a son, and you put all your energy into making my brother's lives hell. So it's a mix between, observed abuse of a sibling and neglectful abuse, basically.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you have. I guess that kind of harkens back to my same point before. Is they've each dealt with a different aspect of him between Natsuo, the sister, and Shoto, and Toya, of course, too. But that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole nother thing. Um, and so their reactions to what has happened fundamentally probably cannot be the same. You know,
Mm-hmm.
in the same way that the sister still has to some degree a relationship with him that the others do not, is
Mm-hmm.
not her, choosing him over them or anything like that, right? Family units are complicated, and the way that they interact with one another can't be something as simple as family member in most position of power must make all sacrifice for any weaker. And the same
Mm-hmm.
as where people were saying oh, Maki should have given up everything to take care of Mai. Well, that's not
Mm-hmm.
fair. Maki was an abused child too, in the
Mm-hmm.
same way that Natsuo was, and he has the right to feel however he feels about Endeavor, and Shoto was too, and Shoto has the right to feel however he does.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see even in the way they interact that they don't feel the same way, or they don't act the same way toward him.
Hmm.
And I think Natsuo is probably at this point the most openly antagonistic toward him when their family all is together.
Hmm.
And Fuyumi is the most obviously passive. She's kind of more on like the sidelines almost of it.
Yeah,
Um,
which that is. I still believe Hori did research for this because, like, the fact that, or that he at least has experience with it, because it is an observed phenomenon that in a family unit where you have multiple siblings, the female siblings will often be like sort of the mediators. And I remember that was a statistic and a study that I had to read back when I was still studying psychology. And it came out, I remember right around when I was studying that, the pro hero arc was happening. And so it was very present in my mind. And I always thought that, I wonder where Hori gets his knowledge from. Because he also has a tendency to dodge questions about his dad, which some people have taken a couple of looks at. But that's, I feel like that goes a bit too far almost.
yeah. Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
like. Maybe he just wants his dad in private life. You know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
possible. Yeah, I mean,
But
on a lighter note, we found out that Toji and Yuta are based on Geigak Utami's dad, on different characteristics of him.
which is interesting as well.
Yeah, to the
Um,
point where his dad apparently walked up to him and said, "Hey, is this me?" So, but yeah, like, to get back to the topic before I utterly derailed it. I think the Endeavor situation is complicated, and that's what makes it good. And I think people are free to feel that the complication of a situation like that is uncomfortable to them because they feel that, based on their own opinion or their own experience, that situations like that should not be complicated. And that's kind of a personal perspective on it. But just looking at it from the perspective of someone who has studied this shit, I do massively appreciate how Hori is tackling this and how he's like choosing to avoid any and all like shortcuts with this. Um, you know, Endeavor isn't secretly evil. Uh, Shoto and the kids aren't secretly planning his demise. Endeavor, he suffers for he suffers consequences for his actions, but they're kind of within the realm of what you would expect, like, public fallout and the hate of one kid that has gone insane. Like, that's still within what the story has set up as reasonable. Um, and of course, something that I'm interested in is if we'll ever get to see an Endeavor backstory, as in like his childhood, because God, depending on what Hori shows there, that'll just add a dozen layers to this, right? Like, because we still don't know why exactly he was so obsessed with All Might. Like, what that, if that
yeah.
was just.
What drove him to be so like to need to be number one to such
Yeah,
an extent?
exactly.
Yeah.
Because, like, what was it? Endeavor is 10 years All Might's junior, so like Endeavor must have been like 15 when All Might first appeared on the scene. Like, what was it? What was it that really got him to this point? Because so far all we've gotten is, I was obsessed with getting stronger than All Might, so I became a terrible person. And I feel like that, out of this entire story, is still the weakest link. But I also feel like we're gonna get something on that.
Yeah.
'Cause
It does feel not that Endeavor himself feels this way, but that justification almost feels comical in comparison to how well everything else is done. That his
Mhm.
justification for becoming this horrible person is, I wanted to be the king of the pirates and I couldn't.
Yeah,
It,
yeah.
it feels like that's not good enough anymore.
Hmm.
And because everything else is just done so well, and all the characters' reactions I think are very realistic. And then you're telling me that he did all this because he's Danzo. He didn't get to be Hokage, so he's ruining everyone else's life. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
It
As I
definitely,
said,
I agree with you. It feels weaker than everything else.
yeah, it feels weak by design. That's the thing. It does not feel like an oversight. It feels like one of those things that we're gonna get something into at some point. And oh my god, if Hori gives Endeavor like a tragic like childhood where he was abused himself as well, or like had a bad father, oh my god, I do not want to be on Twitter when that happens because
No,
that
well, but and that's a shame too because that is also kind of how it works. Like that's what the cycle of abuse is, Like
yeah.
most people don't just wake up one day and decide, I think I'm going to beat my kids today, right? Like it's ingrained in you from a young age how you treat your family because you experience it through your own family growing up, and I don't know. I think everyone's opinion on this is valid. I'm not trying to say that anybody doesn't have a voice on a subject like this because you do, but I just
Hmm.
think that people on Twitter just take it too far, and not in like a oh these aren't real people nerd kind of way, but like when you start making these blanket statements about the author and like what kind of person he is because of the visceral reaction that you have had to something that he has included in his story. I think that's extremely disrespectful and too far because it's a fictional world that he's created, and for all you know, like you said, he's quiet about his dad. Maybe that's something that helps him work through something he's going through, and so to frame it as something that he is inherently doing wrong and thus makes him a bad person just feels so reductionist and a little cruel. Maybe I don't know if cruel is the right word, but it feels unfair and minimizing, I guess.
Hmm.
There's nothing wrong with having this kind of conversation and like generating this in your story to make people have
Hmm.
this kind of conversation. Like, I think it's beneficial to go through it in a way that is like healthy and you see real signs of abuse and you become more aware of it. Like, you can go to someone's house and be like, wow, your house is rad and your dad is the greatest. And then you leave and he's a terrible person to the people that live there
Hmm.
with him. You don't know. And
Hmm.
I don't know. I just think it's so well put together. And I hate to
Yeah.
see all this work go into something just for a bunch of people online to make these sweeping judgments about his character and who he is as a person based
Hmm.
on a very grounded, realistic story just because it makes them emotionally uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing we've mentioned a few times before. I think that the idea that including something in your story means you're complicit in platforming it. That is a shockingly widespread opinion, even though I think it's completely wrong. Like,
Yeah, I mean that
the-
I agree with you is almost ridiculous. Like, of course,
yeah,
having something in your story does not mean that you platform and approve of it. Like, that would make basically any story of all time. Every author is cool with murder. All authors love murder. Like,
yeah,
ridiculous. But
and
like,
like the whole the whole thing about fiction, and I always feel like such an asshole when I fly into this rant, but it's not real. Like, it simply is not real, and that comes with benefits and downsides. And one quality of that, benefit or downside, let alone for the moment, is that it is capable of exploring and constructing situations that we, of course, would not like dabble in real life, right? Like, people who analyze Faust are not into inhumane alchemical experiments or whatnot. They're not into drugging the elderly. They're interested in a story that reflects, anxieties and feelings of the time. And it always sounds so big when you say it like that, but at the end of the day, MHA, like any piece of writing done, is a reflection of humans at the time and what they care about and what they think about. And that is a very different beast from story A platforms abuse because it shows the abuser as anything other than the devil. So it's complicated. It's one of those things where we will never stop talking about it because
yeah, I
there's
mean you
always something
can't,
new.
right? Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. And I don't want anyone to take from this that our thoughts are that you don't deserve a voice on the topic. It just, share your voice in a respectful way. Remember that no matter who you're talking to, be it an author or someone else on the internet or whoever, you're still talking to a person on the other side of the screen. So, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I think that's also something that's important to say. Like, endeavor is not real, but the topic of abuse is very real. And that kind of goes into a lot of stuff when anime fans start to discuss storylines like the Endeavor situation. It's very easy to use the same vocabulary that you use to power scale Endeavor versus All Might in discussions about abuse, and that absolutely does not fly, right? Like you can't speak about Endeavor in ways that harm real people based on their real experiences, because that's the flip side that I've seen on Twitter. It's easy to shit on people who get really into, oh, Hori is an abuse apologist and whatnot, because those are always the very loud ones. But the counters to that are sometimes also very concerning, where people really do go that extra mile and start being abuse apologists themselves when they start talking about this. I mean, it's the same with when the whole thing with the doctor's name happened in My Hero. The one that referenced the
Yeah, yeah.
Japanese war crime, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And people started talking about it as if it were like a controversial like plot twist. It's like, no, like this is real human history that has affected real human lives. Like, you do have to rein yourself in a bit. And that's also to kind of put it in a little bow. you know when I talk about opinions on anime and manga and Endeavor specifically, I am very much talking on we both are very much talking on the level of fictional and narrative analysis. um like, the topic of abuse is much more important and much more valid and much more pressing than anything that'll ever happen in My Hero, by the virtue of it being a real thing. And because of that, like, you're absolutely valid in how you feel towards that topic and how those feelings influence your perception of the world and your perception of fiction. But what is important is to remember that as an adult, you also have the responsibility to treat others with respect, kindness, and to talk about things in a way that doesn't inflict unnecessary harm on people who did not, quote unquote, deserve it or whatever. I don't know. I feel like this has kind of gone off out of bounds of a.
Yeah, we it might have gotten away from us, but I think the ultimate point is that, like, everyone's going. This is such a serious topic that everyone is going to have thoughts on it, and they're allowed to. And it's
Mhm.
like, no matter what anyone thinks on the subject, whether you agree with them, whether you don't, just remember that you're talking to a person,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that person has issues in their lives that you don't know about, just like you have issues they don't know about, and just everybody just kind of take a deep breath and understand that what you're talking about seems like, oh, you're talking about a comic book, but it's like after a while, you're right, it reaches that point where it's like not really anymore. Like, just
Mhm.
on the topic of the name in My Hero, I saw there was like a big argument the other day where people were like, some people brought it up and said that, this was not cool, and then you immediately have the people who are like, it was an accident, he didn't mean it, complete coincidence, like,
Mhm.
you're ridiculous for caring about this. And it's like, but you can't get that way with people, right? Like,
Mhm.
I don't know, it's bad. Everyone needs to just chill.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, whew, buddy, you can count yourself lucky that you're not into Attack on Titan, because oh boy.
Yeah, I avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah. Although, I mean, technically, if you did read it, we could talk about it. It is a shonen manga.
It's not in Shonen Jump, doesn't count.
It's in Bisatsu Shonen magazine.
Different
And
different company, different
but
company.
the show is called Shonen and Chill, not Jump and Chill, Zen.
God damn it.
That's okay. I really pity the person who clicks on this cartoon podcast, skips forward a bit, and just like, so about that human condition and the pain of not being able to understand each other's difficulties.
Yeah, this. God damn it, Horikoshi. Can
Okay.
we talk about Mashle again?
Well, on another note, did you notice that this My Hero chapter referenced Sakamoto?
Sakamoto Days?
Yeah.
No, I did not.
Because the guy who attacks the Cider Boys gang, the civilian who protects themselves, is literally Sakamoto from Sakamoto Days.
Oh my God, hang on. I need to go back and look at this.
Yeah, Caleb even pointed it out, the translator, in his thread. Like a very likely reference to it. Because he's a store shop owner with a big giant gun weapon with glasses, and he's kind of pudgy and has the ponytail.
Oh yeah, he does look a lot. He looks like a less cartoony version of him.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
funny. I like that.
I also like how the hospital they're at with Endeavor and Deku is seemingly populated by Mario knockoffs.
Yes,
Because
the
Deku
Toad,
had, yeah,
Doctor Toad.
Deku had Dr. Yoshi and Endeavor has Dr. Toad.
Ah, that's funny.
Uh, Also, I do like that the Cider Gang comes back up. Like, that's like the most random villain group to bring back. But somehow I'm like, yes, sure. I'm happy. I'm happy these people mattered at least somewhat. Because, do you remember them?
No.
The Cider Gang are the people who Todoroki and Shoto defeat on their way back from their
Are
provisional
you
license
refer? Do you mean
exams.
Todoroki and Bakugo?
Todoroki and Bakugo, yes, yes. What did I say?
Oh, you mean like when they leave and they get their licenses and they
Yes,
bop those dudes in like 2 seconds? That's them.
yes. That's
That's
them. That's
so
the same
funny.
guys.
Yeah, that
Because
is
they escaped
random. I
prison.
did. Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, it's cool. Like it's like it's kind of a smaller thing of what people always praise about One Piece. It's like this sense of consistency where there's just people that exist and keep coming up, and I think that's cool, right? Like, no one gives a shit about the Cider Boys, but I give a shit about the fact that Horikoshi can pull out these characters and they're not just complete newbies, and
Right,
you
like
can
it's
actually go back and
continuity.
find them.
It's just neat continuity. It's good
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
When you have that
Like,
kind of stuff, you can tell the author cares about the world that they're creating.
yeah, exactly. It's like, whenever I praise like small things like that about anything, be it my hero or like literally anything, they're always like, you're hyper focusing on like a tiny detail that's not even that good. And it's like, yeah, that's what I do. Like, things don't have to be the most bestest, perfectest thing ever in order to be worthy of praise. Like, you know, the Cider Boys coming back isn't the peak of literature, but
Yeah,
it sure is
this isn't
fun,
peak
right?
fiction because they showed back up, but it's cool. And it's just,
Yeah.
it's nice to see that the author obviously cares about the world that he's making. You can
Yeah.
tell, I maybe you can't tell, but to me at least you can see certain works where it just feels like the author is just churning. And that seems
Hmm.
disrespectful because I don't want to say that any author doesn't care about the work that they're making, but
Hmm.
it's nice to see these little touches where like you as the reader can feel it from the work, like how much that he cares about it. It's very nice.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Hori has a lot of leeway for me in that regard because, he better care about my hero. It's his third series and he was so desperate to get it serialized. Like,
That's fair.
yeah, so like he has a lot of like stored up goodwill just off of that. Like I'm willing to be patient on that regard, which is, when stuff like the Muriel shit happens, I'm like, that's annoying, but I don't think Hori has like stopped caring because I just can't really see that happening with him.
Well, right, yeah.
Yeah. Um, Anything else about the chapter that like immediately strikes you?
I don't think so. I think that I'm pretty good with
Mm.
what we discussed.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing that I noticed that I thought was pretty cool is that the final panel of Dobby, did you notice what he's actually doing there?
The final panel of hang on, let me go back and look at it.
Yeah, the final panel of the chapter when Ray says we have to talk about Toya. Do you notice what he's doing there? You have to kind
Ew,
of
is he
zoom in.
is he sewing his skin on?
He is patching himself back together because everything's falling apart because he's overused his flames again.
Ew. Ew.
Ew, but cool.
God, I hate this beef jerky mummy man.
I love him.
Ugh.
I love this beef jerky mummy man.
Oh, he's so gross.
Also, the panel of Endeavor remembering Toya's words about dancing with him in hell, that panel is so good.
Yes, that panel slaps.
Oh my
That's
god.
the best panel in the chapter, I think.
Yeah, Dobby has just been getting so many good panels. It's insane. Uh and still almost none of them are good for thumbnails. I hate life.
The one was good. The one we used was good.
Well, yeah, but the problem is I can't really use that for anything in the future because by the time I ever get to talking about Dabi again, everyone will have already made their videos on him and everyone will have used that exact panel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing you can
So,
really do
but
about that.
well, I hope we get like a Dabi volume cover for the next volume.
Ah, that'd be
Those
good.
always smack.
That'd be super good.
Yeah, I mean, volume 30 is the volume with the Dabi reveal. So I kind of would be very surprised if we get anything else. Oh my
Yeah, that
god,
would make sense to make it that volume.
oh my god, if the volume cover is just fucking like Mirio or some shit.
Look
Or
who's got his powers back. It's Tintin.
oh my god. Now I actually want volume 30 to have Best Genist on its cover because he
Yes,
is the
the
best
best
character
character in
after.
the game, the whole thing. I almost said in the game. The best character in the whole show, best genus.
I mean, he does have best in his name. Like,
Yeah,
what
right?
else
It's
do you
right
want?
there. What more do you want?
Also,
Obviously, he's best genus.
he's only one of two heroes we've seen so far to have their own superhero mobile.
Yeah, he's
And
got the jeans mobile.
yes. And Endeavor can't even drive his own one. He has to hire a fucking butler to do it.
Yeah, right? What a man, best genus is a hero of the people.
Exactly.
The everyman hero we need. God, I love best genus. I'm so
So
glad
good.
we got off all that serious shit. Now we're talking about best genus.
I will say though, he is cool. Like his like gimmick with the fucking fiber puns. Sure, that's super dumb, but it's also really funny sometimes.
I think it's
Like
great, dude. I fucking love best genus. Oh my god. Why are
when
we doing this again?
when Hawks is talking about his like how his family fell apart, and Best Gina's comment is like, it must have been making you suffer like wearing a too tight pair of skinny jeans. And Hawks just cuts him off because like, no, none of that shit.
Fuck, why is he the best character? This is the second time that we're coming to the realization that best genus is the best character.
I know.
It's twice
But
now.
He is. The dude has like a turtleneck that goes up to his nose. How could you not love him?
God, he really is the best.
He kind of looks like Toge from Jujutsu Kaisen if you think
He
about it.
does. He does look like Toge.
Oh my god.
Dude, his fucking his turtleneck jean leg with the belt on it.
You know what I need to see? I need to see Best Genus, but drawn and redesigned by Tetsuya Nomura.
Oh my god.
And
The
it'll
number
just
of
have,
belts. God, the best part of Best Genus is that he has like an open, unzipped jean collar over top of the jean turtleneck that goes up to his eyes.
Actually, you know what we need? We need a Genus face reveal.
We
Like,
do need the Best Genus face reveal.
who the fuck cares about the Todoroki family, man? Give the
Yeah,
people
dude,
what they want.
the real final showdown of this isn't gonna be Todoroki versus Dabi. It's gonna be Genus getting revenge for Hawks. The final battle, best Genus versus All for One.
Yeah, I'm gonna tweet at President of the United States later. Kind of fucked up that we still don't have Genus's face, don't you think, Mr. Biden?
Can we get an executive order that requires best Genus to identify himself to the people, please?
The people have a right to know what their god looks like. Why? Why do we do this?
I don't know. Every time we end up back on this, the fact this has happened more than once is absurd. But also, it's best Genus.
It is, and the thing is, like, when he's introduced in the manga, they say he has won the Best Genus award 8 times in a row, which implies that he made up an award just for himself. Or It means that he won an award 8 times and just thought, "Yep, this is my hero name now."
This is what I am now. This is who I am.
My hero identity. 3rd grade spelling bee silver medal.
What the fuck is a genist?
I don't know. Someone who's like really. Someone who's like a racist, but only against people who wear jeans. He's like, oh, these fucking Levi's coming into our shop again.
Oh my god, dude, his whole outfit is just jeans. But he's also like the best hero because he actually like gives a shit big time.
Yeah, he's like actually, ironically, the most well put together and the most like actually heroic hero beyond All Might. Because like All Might's kind of like a fucking child if you think about it.
Yeah, he's
like,
a big dumb idiot.
Yeah, he's like, I have power. I will save whoever. I have no plan because I don't need plan. I have bicep.
I am big strong. Yeah.
Yeah, like to the point where Gran Torino even says like, "Oh, it's not your style to make feints and maneuvers." Whereas Genus is like actually like, no, there's a method to my not madness to my drip.
To my genist.
The method to my genus.
There's a method in my genes.
No, this is so dumb. I can't believe this is our character arcs then.
Once again, best genist comes out on top.
He wins the best genist award for the 9th time.
God, I'm just thinking about, remember when all the heroes get bodied by All for One before he fights All Might?
Yeah.
And they're all like unconscious, but Best Genist is lifting himself up by using his quirk to push himself off the ground with his gene fibers. He can't even stand and he's still trying to get up. What a legend.
What an... God, Genus needs his own spin-off. Like, who the fuck asked for vigilantes?
Right? Who the fuck cares about this stupid kid? Where's the Best Genist spin-off?
I mean, I suppose vigilantes is safe by the fact that we do get to see a bit of Best Genist.
Not enough.
Not enough. That is true. Oh my god. Oh my god. You know what we need? The other spin-off team up mission. We need a team up mission chapter where it's just the entire class teaming up with Best Genist, and he's all just giving them like fashion makeovers.
Just like life advice and combing their hair.
Yeah. He like starts he's like the actual responsible adult who teaches them the shit UA doesn't teach them because they're all out of touch.
He's like teaching them how to do their taxes.
And they're like, he's like fucking giving them a bowl cut, and he's like, so anyway, about the 401k that you should invest into.
If you ever join a hero association that doesn't give you a 3% match on your 401k, you need to get out of there.
Oh my god. Best Genus's hero slogan is absolutely something to the effect of, just like fibers, we shall stand together. In other words, fucking unionize.
Best Genist is out helping striking workers.
Best
at the jeans factory.
These fibers shall wrap around the means of production.
These fibers shall seize the means of production. Everyone should be paid a fair living wage for producing their jeans.
The right to live is not a privilege. It is a human right. Everyone is born with it. In other words, you could say it's in their genes.
This picket line is stronger than the denim. My jeans.
No. Are you with me, man? Oh my god. end up finding this like weird random thing to latch onto and just obliterate each other's lungs.
It happens every time.
It is funny though because when Jujutsu Kaisen is around, it's always political, and when it's My Hero, it's slightly political, but it's also just best genius.
Best genius.
Oh my god!
All I can think of now is him outside with a bunch of striking workers, like stand as firm as your jeans.
Oh, no.
The fabric of our community is untouchable.
Oh my god! The string of fate point only in one direction, that of the revolution. Oh my god. I do not envy Caleb for having to translate all those fucking jeans puns from Japanese into English.
I can't wait till someone tags the Viz Twitter and says this pun was terribly translated.
At Wiz, how can you do this? Not enough jeans.
Not. I can't believe you haven't fired Horikoshi and brought in a new writer with more best genius.
Also, actually, and the one thing we completely forgot to mention is Wash speaks for the first time in the series, as in like a full sentence.
And it's just clean you up.
Yeah, it's a fucking washing machine pun. I fucking hate Horikoshi sometimes. Oh my god, he's so... But in general, if you look like into Hori's, like especially his naming convention, you realize a lot of his names are so dumb. Like a lot of them are just so straightforward. Like
Oh god.
Deku's full name like translates to just green number 9 because he's the 9th one for all user and he's green. Which, you know, real creative there, Hori.
Excellent.
Oh, all right. Is there anything else we want to add
No,
on to this?
I think we're good after now that we've gotten in a sufficient amount of best genus. I think we're good.
Yeah, learn from us, my hero. You have not hit your quota yet. Every week from now on, I'll just review every My Hero chapter with a disturbing lack of best genus.
What is Horikoshi trying to tell us by keeping best genus out of the lore?
Horikoshi, it's just like the ruling classes. He's keeping us away from what we really want, which is best genus.
Ah.
Oh man.
I'm in pain.
That was like 7 voice cracks in one, man.
I know. I'm not doing so good anymore.
All right. Do we want to wrap things up then before we actually fucking croak?
Yes, after I show you this picture.
No, what are you gonna show me? What is this? Is it our Lord and Savior? No. Oh my god.
I googled best genus and that was like really early up in the results.
I'm disturbed by how good the art is.
I know, it's really good actually.
Oh my god. What a fucking stupid character design. But he's so good. The denim demon.
I really wish his car was shaped more like pants. Like it was just a pair of pants on wheels.
No, they suggested that to Hori, but he was like, no, that's really bad. I mean, that's like totally pants. And I believe that's the last one I got in me.
All right, so I think that's the best part is the video portion of this just has Best Cheetah's ass showing in the corner.
Good. So it'll be ambiguous whether this is actually porn or not.
It's not. I promise, everybody. I promise.
Yes, he promised.
All right. All right. Are we good? Are we content?
Yes, yes, I think I've gotten all the jabs out. We're fine.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for tuning in for 16 of these. I don't know how you guys have the patience.
Someone said today that they were like binging them, and I'm like, how?
Oh man, we are
Aren't they
not
all the same?
responsible for the therapy that you need after you do that.
Yeah, I mean, aren't our episodes like all the same? It's like a reasonable discussion for like a bit about the smaller series. Then we scream about Jujutsu Kaisen and possibly capitalism, and then we go into MHA and like start discussions way in over our head and also best genus. Like that's every episode. Well, except the best genus part. That we keep that as a special treat.
All right, everybody.
All right.
We're signing off today.
Yeah.
We're never
Signing
gonna
off
get
then.
off if we don't just click the button.
All right. Take care, y'all.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.